When I started practicing law years ago, I noticed very quickly that the cards were stacked against innocent accident victims. That's not right. That's why my law firm is dedicated to working exclusively on behalf of those who need it the most. I'm Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. When you're in an accident, we can help you get the compensation you deserve. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
Raptors Weekly for the week of December 28th. Blake Murphy joins the show today. Hey, Blake, man.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Not bad. Christmas, time off. Yesterday, I went out on a bit of a bender, and I actually just am still recovering from it. And I caught the Raptor game at a place called the Crown and Dragon. Have you heard of this place?
I have not.
Yeah, it's like on Yonge and Bloor. Total dive bar. And that's where I caught the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Toronto Raptors. A game that I was monitoring, kind of going in and out, and the Raptors were kind of up and then down, and then I zoned in during the fourth quarter, and they were like up 21, and I was like, what happened there? Do you know what happened there?
Yeah, they played to their potential, and every single shot went in. The ball movement in that fourth quarter was beautiful. You know, you're never going to expect to hit 8 of 11 on threes, but they were all pretty clean looks. TJ Ross was fire from outside. Patrick Patterson was whipping the ball around the outside. Their defense was great. Ross jumped 2 passing lanes for like clean picked steals that led to baskets the other way. Lowry and DeRozan barely did anything the whole fourth quarter. Each of them played fewer than 5 minutes. I think each only took 2 field goal attempts. It was a lot of the reserves carrying things. It was great to see. If they could have that, I mean, if you had that kind of defensive intensity for 48 minutes, you'd exhaust yourself. But if they could bring it like that consistently, Milwaukee's not a great team, especially on offense, but that was so much fun. The biggest thing was the offensive ball movement. Like 11 points allowed stands out, but the way they were whipping it around and making the extra pass, there was even one play, I put a gif of it in my post game, where they were actually guilty of overpassing. They sent one too many around the perimeter, and it ended in a 3-second violation for the center, who was, I think, Scola at that time. It was great, man. You missed a good quarter. You should go back and watch it.
Yeah, but I did catch your tweet when when you had that Bismack Biyombo post ready for his 16-point career high. Unfortunately, you had to delete that one. What happened there? Why didn't he get that final point?
He didn't play in the entire fourth quarter was the big thing, and part of that was because the team just got some momentum in the fourth with that centerless lineup with Scola at the pivot. Part of it was the fact that Greg Monroe, as good as Biyombo is defensively and as a rim protector, Monroe was eating his lunch a little bit. For whatever reason, I don't know if it was just the dirty old man elbows or what, but Scola seemed to settle him down some. The Raptors did a better job doubling and then recovering out of the double, things like that. But Biyombo, despite the strong numbers, yet again, was not a negative. His plus minus was negative, but you can't use that to judge a player's contributions to a game. But again, everything that he brings defensively, it kind of gets taken away offensively. And I have a post coming Monday morning after the pregame goes up about Valanciunas' return. And a big part of it is I know everyone's fallen in love with Biyombo. I know there are a lot of people who don't love Valanciunas, especially with the rest of the core. I have seen a lot of comments and mentions on our Twitter account about keeping Biyombo as the starter, or that Valanciunas is now proven as a tradable piece because Biyombo has held his own. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's not true, despite how fun Biyombo is and despite how well he's played. The team, even without Valanciunas, has been better with Biyombo on the bench. So with Nogueira on the court, or with no center at all, the Scola at center or the Patterson-Johnson front court, whatever it may be, the team's actually still struggled with Biyombo out there. And a lot of that's because Lowry, Joseph, and DeRozan all see several offensive metrics decrease pretty significantly when Biyombo's out there with them, because you're playing 4-on-5, you don't have driving lanes, and it's a lot tougher to get to the rim when, Greg Monroe, we saw a lot of it on Saturday, Greg Monroe just helps off of Biyombo to stand right underneath the basket. The Bucks got called for one defensive 3 in the key technical, they probably could have been called for a dozen the way they were ignoring Biyombo to protect the rim.
Yeah, and I think that manifests itself more in the fourth quarter. I find that in the first half, and maybe even in the third quarter, teams still tend to pay attention to Biyombo just because they're kind of used to playing man defense, so they stick a man on him. But in the fourth quarter, they tend to become a little more cognizant of how to actually play defense and how to, like, what to ignore and what strategies to employ. And you find that in the fourth quarter, it really becomes evident how much teams leave Biyombo alone.
Yeah, I think you get a little more aggressive trapping the ball handler and double teaming in the pick and roll as the game dictates. And, the Bucks have played the Raptors 3 times now, so they should have known that was the case. It's the second time they played them without Valanciunas. They didn't, you're right, they did that. Well, Biyombo didn't play in the fourth quarter, so we wouldn't have seen it, but they did do that last time out. They were fairly aggressive with it early on. Greg Monroe was just straight up ignoring Biyombo. And it's a smart way to play. You'd suggest the Raptors do the exact same thing against the center like Biyombo, and you make the least talented guy on the floor kill you on that end.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed it was when they dealt with Greg Monroe, the double teams that came to Monroe were big man. So Scola and Biyombo doubled him, and that tested his passing ability a little bit more rather than a guard dropping down and doubling him. It was a big man who came over, and I thought that was a good strategy. We don't see that too much by the Raptors. We always see somebody from the wing come down and double down, but yesterday against Monroe, the small adjustment Casey made to bring in a bigger guy to double, it really helped, I thought.
Yeah, DeRozan was the guy who was doubling for the most part in the first quarter, and that was fairly effective, but Monroe started beating that. Monroe is such a great passer for a big man, off the block or from the elbows. That's why he's so tough to double like that. But yeah, Scola was, handsy in there. I think James Johnson had a couple plays where on post-entry passes he made things difficult. And I think that's what you have to do against a guy like Monroe, who's kind of a comfort and feel guy, is you've got to throw things at him to disrupt him. If you find something that works, great, but be ready to move on from that if he gets comfortable with it. And I thought Casey did well. I thought Casey had a really well-coached game in general with his rotations, with how he used Amari Carroll in his first game back, with going away from Biyombo, even though Biyombo was putting up good numbers and had a couple highlight reel blocks. I know I've kind of been the most pro Casey voice at Republic. I think he's probably, during the Valanciunas and Carroll absences, he's earned his option for next year over the last couple weeks. Things can obviously change, but he's coached the hell out of this team while they were down to like 8 players.
Yeah. Well, I could also say that when you're down to 8 players, the options you have kind of, are limited. And at that point, you maybe don't have as many decisions to make than if you had, like, say, 12 players available or 11 players available.
Yeah, that's fair, but they still went 11-6 with Valanciunas out and 6-3 with Carroll out, and that's difficult stuff to do, and Casey deserves some of the credit for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not taking anything away. Yeah.
In Saturday's game, the ball movement is something that people wring their hands about and blame Casey for when it's not there. So when it is there, using that same logic, he gets some of the credit for its presence if he is the one who gets the blame for its absence. And there are a couple of really nice plays that they run, and they're plays that are in the playbook regularly and get dusted off once in a while. I'm going to do a breaking it down post tomorrow afternoon, assuming no news breaks. And there are a couple. There was a TJ Ross flex cut that was great. There was a really nice Kyle Lowry deception play on a side out of bounds. Curiously, I don't even believe this really, but the Raptors are one of the high-scoring teams in terms of points per possession out of timeouts this year, which I feel like would be shocking to anyone, Raptors fan or otherwise, to hear.
I don't think coaching has been an issue at all this season. I think he's done a good job of diversifying his offense, and the assist count doesn't necessarily reflect that. But overall, I really think he's making a lot more effort in just moving the ball around, making sure there's at least 3 or 4 touches per possession. And I think I don't know if the NBA tracks this, but the amount of times different players touch the ball on each possession, I think it's gone way up for the Raptors this year compared to last. But
yeah, we'll look into that in more detail. I think those numbers are around. The other metric that's important is the number of @Raptors Republic Twitter mentions that say "Fire Casey" down precipitously over the last couple of weeks.
Well, let's wait till the Chicago game is over, because if they lose that, it'll spike up again.
Man, this is going to be a fun week. Four pretty good games. Like they play one at Chicago, one at home against Chicago, and then they have Washington and Charlotte in there too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of potential playoff previews this week.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about JV coming back this week, and the Raptors are on a good run, 1-3 of 4. Is there, of course, I totally believe that JV should be starting and all that, but is there something to be said for maintaining some sort of continuity entering this critical week, that we stick with Biyombo and ease JV back in, or are you like, let's go with JV starting right now?
I am actually of the opposite mind. So I kind of, when Valanciunas and Carroll went down, I kind of circled this December 26th to January 9th stretch. It's a bit of a dense schedule. There are a couple really tough games in there. And then after that stretch, the Raptors only play once over an 8-day stretch because of their England trip, and then have a 7-game homestand. So things are going to get easy in maybe 2-3 weeks from now. Or not easy, but things are going to let up a little bit and be more conducive to success. I think right now, with Carroll working his way back, with Valanciunas working his way back, now is the time to, take a lump if you need to get everyone. The starting lineup wasn't very good before these guys went down. Carroll still hadn't figured out the chemistry with some of the lineups he was being deployed in. I'm okay taking a little bit of a lump now and just, let's figure this thing out. I would use, instead of bringing Valanciunas off the bench, instead of giving Carroll another game off the bench, I would start them both Monday, and I'd use that as a time to swap Skoll and Patterson in the starting lineup too, because you're already making 2 changes, getting guys reacclimated. Then's the time, just get all your adjustment out of the way at once. I think Skoll to Patterson swap is something that needs to happen at some point, and I know you agree with that. I think now's the time to do that. Just get all the changes out at once and spend this tough stretch of schedule finding a chemistry and trying to build some momentum before you hit this easier stretch where, you don't want to waste that easier stretch readjusting if you just get by during this stretch playing a way that you're not going to play later in the year.
Yeah, it's a bit baptism by fire, because Chicago, Washington, Charlotte, Chicago, and then Cleveland again. Like if you swap out 60% of the starting lineup, you obviously, throw away the whole continuity thing, and you're basically testing lineups at this point against in a critical stretch of the schedule. I don't know. You can go both ways on this, but let's talk about Skola for a bit, man. Like, what's your rationale for swapping him instead of Patterson? Like, are you looking out for the bench, or are you looking out for the starting lineup?
I'm looking out for both, really. I've always thought Patterson was a more natural fit with the starters in terms of offensive fit and defensive fit. Skola's knocked down, 44% of his threes, but teams still aren't guarding him as if he's a 3-point threat, whereas they do for Patterson. So that widens the floor a little bit. And then defensively, Patterson isn't an elite man defender, but he's such a smart system defender. And him and Carroll are close enough in size that they can switch fairly freely. He's a good help defender, and he makes his rotations smartly and crisply. And I think that could help. The starting lineup didn't really need the defensive boost necessarily, but I think he would help in that regard. And then the second unit, once Biyombo goes back to the second unit, there's a chance that the offense sputters again. Ross has picked up a little bit, which is great. Joseph's been, not quite the way he was to start the season the last little bit, whether that's because of the illness or whatever. I think Skola could really boost the second unit. Maybe the second unit scoring issues are a thing of the past as guys have kind of gotten hot and shaken the rust off. But if it's an issue, that's something Skola could help with. Skola can create from himself. He can work the elbows or the block. He can work a dribble handoff game with Corey Joseph. I think Skola is a more natural fit with the bench unit. I think Patterson's a more natural fit with the starters. And as weird as it is maybe to, punish a guy in Skola who's played fairly well, I think that's the way to maximize both units. And I don't know, I'd make that change sooner than later, just so you have the proper amount of time to judge it and for everyone to get comfortable with it. I'm
all for the Skola swap, especially into this heading into the schedule, because I want to see how he does against proper opposition, and this might be a good test. So, because these games will tell you a lot more than games against, in the stretch that you mentioned, Washington, Philly, Orlando, Brooklyn, So I want to see Scola against some good competition in meaningful games. So I'm looking forward to next week more than anybody here, man. But let's talk about TJ. Let's talk about is the rebrand official, by the way? Is this TJ? Or are we going back to Terrence if he has a stretch of poor games? Like, where are you on that one?
No. So this is how it works.
How does it work? Yeah.
He started the year as Terrence Ross. He was not good. He got the extension. We being me mostly, and then a couple of people who are as big idiots as me on Twitter decide to go along with it. Then we decided, okay, Terry Ross, maybe this will work. It worked for like 2 games, and then was a complete disaster after that. So when DeMarre Carroll went down, that's the Lakers game on December 7th, Kobe night. I was like, you know what? Let's try this again. And we called him TJ. We were joking about it a little bit in the media gondola that game and tweeting it, and everyone was like, okay, like, give me a break, you're an idiot. But that's been the start of the change. He had 22 points that game. The 3 games after that, he only totaled 13 points, but his defense picked up pretty noticeably. And in the 10 games since the rebrand, 12.6 points, 48.5% shooting, 45.2% from long range. So it looks like TJ's going to stick. I do have other rebrands prepared whenever he hits like a 3 or 4 game skid, because this one seemed to shake him out of it. The most successful rebrand, I think, since Backrub changed their name to Google.
Okay, Terrence Ross. Let's talk about the last 10 games. The Raptors, by the way, are 7-3 in those 10 games, and he's, as you mentioned, his offensive rating is 105. His true shooting percentage at almost 64%. So it's obviously working. Does he need to play with a particular lineup to be successful, or is this guy somebody you can actually play as part of a bench unit with maybe, say, one starter and he'll be equally effective? Like, getting productivity out of Terrence Ross is something that everybody's kind of scratching their head about, and right now it's working, and he's playing a lot of his minutes with Kyle Lowry, with DeMar DeRozan, and he's getting productive. If you move him around a little bit now, if you bring him off the bench and insert DeMar Carroll is, like, what is the risk to his productivity?
I don't think there's much. He's mostly a catch and shoot guy. He can put the ball on the floor a little bit, but that's not something, the team entered the year hoping he would do that more. I don't think it's something that they're going to do much. I think the important thing is not just for Ross, but for the entire bench unit, Casey has to try his best to stagger DeRozan and Lowry's minutes so that one of those guys is propping up the bench unit. Joseph's been solid, but when Biyombo's out there with him, the Joseph-Biyombo pairing has struggled because those initial pick and rolls that start everything kind of sputter out pretty quickly. So, Ross was maybe a victim of that early on. Maybe he was a victim of just not doing anything to help those two guys get going. But I don't think so. I'm guardedly optimistic that he's maybe found his groove and his footing here. And a guy who most of his points come off of spot up shooting, part of his success is going to depend on, getting timely looks and knocking them down and stuff. But his struggles early in the year weren't because of the quality of looks he was getting. He was just missing largely open catch and shoot jumpers. So, if you look at the percentage of his looks that have been open, the percentage of his looks that have been catch and shoot, over this stretch compared to earlier in the year, they're almost identical. So I don't think it's a matter of the starters are putting him in a better position. I think he's just found a way to play better, and his numbers in the games he's come off the bench in this stretch are just as good or better than his numbers when he starts.
I don't know. I'm kind of split on this one.
Of course you are. Yeah. It's Terrence Ross. None of us have any choice but to be split. We all, I think, want to believe, because he's getting paid like a guy who needs to play this well. The team kind of needs him to bring this off the bench, but he's Terrence Ross.
Yeah, see, the thing with him is that, like, if he's playing with Corey Joseph versus if he's playing with Kyle Lowry, to me matters a lot, because with Kyle Lowry is an excellent 3-point shooter, and the defense essentially never leaves him alone at the wing. And with Corey Joseph, he's been struggling a bit of late, and he does not have a 3-point shot. And the defense tends to sag off of him a lot. And I think if he plays with the lineup, especially with Scola and the bench, I think, and especially Biyombo coming off the bench, I think you'll see the defense stick to him a lot more than they do with when he's playing with Ross and Lowry. So it's not so much that Lowry's like gifting him shots and he's hitting him down. I just think the defense will pay more attention to him if he's playing with the second unit than with the first. And so that's why where I'm a little 50-50 on this one.
His true shooting percentage with Lowry on the floor jumps from 52.2% to 57.8%. So I guess you'd see with everyone on the team a jump like that because Lowry's so good at getting guys easier shots and getting defensive attention. But yeah, you're right. It's a minor concern that Ross's numbers are better with Lowry. And again, Casey can help some of that by staggering the units a little bit and, not tethering Lowry to DeRozan as much. And he's done a better job of that of late, even as the rotation has been thinned out. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look to the week. Let's start off in Chicago on Monday night. NBA TV says on ESPN page. This is the NBA TV in the U.S., right? So it's technically a nationally televised game.
It's not to me because NBA TV in the U.S. is only in about like 50% of homes. So it's like a half national game.
I'll call it a national game. So in Chicago, this one, 8 p.m. tip-off. The Bulls, obviously a good front court here. I saw the Bulls play the Knicks the other day, and Bobby Portis went off. That was something to behold. He'll
do that, and Joakim Noah's out, so big minutes for Portis right now.
So we'll see. I don't know if Michael Hollian will have another undercard post comparing DeLon Wright and Bobby Portis, but I think let's talk about that momentarily, man. Is it an unfair comparison at this point because Bobby Portis is getting NBA minutes and DeLon's kind of shuffling his way between the big club and the D League?
Yeah, it's tough to compare two guys when one of them's getting minutes. And Portis wasn't getting minutes early in the year until the Bulls decided the front court rotation they had wasn't working, and they had to make a change to the starters. They started playing Nikola Mirotic more at the 3, which is hilarious defensively, but they are making it work. And offensively, Mirotic has the shooter reputation, but isn't knocking down shots. So anyway, that's probably fluid. But Portis is playing great. I was a big Bobby Portis fan. Entering the draft, he was one of the guys on my short list of players I thought the Raptors would have a shot at in the number 20 pick range. I liked Wright too. He's looked solid in the D League. I just don't think you can compare. Wright has played 17 minutes this year, and it's not necessarily because he's bad. It's because Kyle Lowry and Corey Joseph are here. It's the same if Joakim Noah had played like old Joakim Noah all season, and Gasol was playing like Pete Gasol, and Mirotic was knocking down his threes. Maybe Bobby Portis isn't getting minutes either, but that's the way things have broke in Chicago, and they haven't in Toronto. And yeah, Portis is great. I expected him to be great, and that's good news for the Bulls. But I don't think you can really call it a win for Portis yet. I mean, he's certainly won round 1 or round 2, however many rounds Holian's done.
I think he's done 2 rounds, but the Bulls they're one of those teams that seems to get they get too much respect at the start of the season because they seem to get picked as a second best team in the East way too frequently when clearly the postseason results say otherwise, and the regular season results say otherwise. But somehow they always get picked as the second best team in the East. And this year, with the East being 3 games separating 1 to 8, they stand right now I think 2 games. Or a game and a half back of the Raptors in the 6th spot. The Raptors are 4th. Do the Raptors approach this game as with a bit of a chip on their shoulder that the Bulls seem to be getting a lot of respect out of the blue, while the Raptors seem to need to earn it more?
I don't necessarily think the respect for the Bulls is out of the blue. I think that they have a strong defensive system, and they're good on the defensive end. And I think people kind of expected Derrick Rose to be back to a more Derrick Rose level than he has been, but he still isn't very good. He's averaging 14 points and 5 assists, shooting 38% from the floor. He's not, and he's turning the ball over almost 3 times a game. He's not even close to Rose yet. And I think people maybe not thought, but hoped that he would be back to that level. Them losing Mike Dunleavy really hurt their wing rotation and a lot of their floor spacing too. And I think what's telling about them is that they're 5th in defense and 26th in offense, which is, if the Raptors from the last couple of years will tell you how hard it is to win on only one end of the floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Raptors approach it. The Raptors think they're the second best team in the Eastern Conference. They might even think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, but they definitely think they're the second best team. And Atlanta is the only team that on resume has a better claim to that right now. Chicago is a bunch of what ifs and maybes. Indiana has kind of tailed off after a hot start. Washington has gone from, serious second round playoff threat to a 500 team. The Raptors, I think the Raptors think they're the second best team in the East, and I think if they think everyone else thinks the Bulls are the second best team in the East, they're going to be really up for this game on Monday, and they're going to be really up when Chicago visits on the weekend too.
Yeah. So matchup to watch here for me is every time I play the Bulls is DeRozan versus Butler. Because he generally guards him. He's also their arguably, or probably is their best offensive player as well, and he's also their best wing defender in the starting lineup as well. It's always, when you go up against certain guys, you kind of measure yourself, and I think DeRozan looks at Jimmy Butler and says, if I have a good game here, it means a lot more than if I have a good game against, I don't know, Chris Middleton.
Yeah, definitely. And Middleton's a quality defender, but he's not Jimmy Butler, who is probably in a small handful of the very best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA right now. And for the people who like to compare Butler and DeRozan because their numbers are fairly similar, well, that's the huge difference right there. Their scoring, rebounds, and assist numbers are pretty similar. Jimmy Butler is an elite perimeter defender, and DeRozan is, roughly average. So there's why, Butler might be getting an all-star nod ahead of DeRozan if it comes down to that. But yeah, it's a good measuring stick for DeRozan. DeRozan is playing offensively the best ball of his career over the last 9 games. I think he scored 20 plus in 9 straight. His efficiency's been off the charts in those games. He's passing the ball really well off the dribble to kind of mix things up and keep defenses honest. Getting to the line a ton, obviously. Jimmy Butler's a really good measuring stick. If DeRozan can, 20 is a random cutoff, but if he hangs 20 on Jimmy Butler, that's a heat check. Going up against Jimmy Butler when you're on that hot a streak, when Jimmy Butler has consistently locked you down, it's a really good test. And if DeRozan can plow through that still hot, maybe I don't know. I'm going to be impressed if he scores the way he's been scoring on Jimmy Butler, because he hasn't generally done that against Butler.
Yeah, there are 2 guys who are the kryptonite for DeMar DeRozan. That's Jimmy Butler and Gerald Henderson, if you can believe it.
Yeah, well, Gerald Henderson is on the other end, DeMar DeRozan's kryptonite too, and just man, I remember not last year, but the year before, I think Gerald Henderson dropped 18 or 20 first half points against the Raptors, and I did a breaking it down post of how he kept getting these buckets, and it was just beating DeRozan off of curls over and over and over again. And by the end I felt bad for just putting DeRozan on blast for it, and it's yeah, how do you let Gerald Henderson do that to you? Of course you're on blast, man.
Yeah. Hey, so much for Tom Thibodeau killing the Bulls with high minutes. This year, Jimmy Butler is averaging 38 minutes a game, which is a minute down from last year, so it's pretty much the same thing. And we complained about DeMar DeRozan playing too many minutes. He's at, 36 and a half? Butler's got him beat again this year. So, are you surprised by Fred Hoiberg not scaling back the minutes down for his key players? Or is that just, I don't know, because that was one of the main criticisms of Thibodeau.
I don't think it's fair to say he's not, because Butler's the only player on the team averaging more than 33 minutes. So, I think it's a case where he's still leaning on Jimmy Butler more than, almost any player in the NBA. And Derrick Rose at 33 minutes is maybe a little high. But other guys, Butler, Rose, and Gasol are the only guys averaging even 24 minutes. So he's kept Noah's minutes down. He's kept Gibson's minutes down. He's leaning on Kirk Hinrich less, which is probably a good thing. If you ask Bulls fans, they probably say too, yeah, I'd like Jimmy Butler to play less than 38 minutes a game because it's an injury risk. But the Bulls need him, and the fact that he's now not only their best defensive player, but also their best offensive player, it's tough to, how do you tell a coach, hey, you're 26th in offense and we need you to play your best offensive player even less? That's a tough sell, and maybe they've taken the trade-off that as long as he can keep everyone else's minutes managed well, he can have free reign with Butler. Butler, too, his minutes are even tougher than DeRozan's, I think, because, he gets fouled almost as much as DeRozan on the offensive end, and then he's got the toughest assignment every night on defense, whereas Carroll has mostly taken those assignments away from DeRozan.
The Bulls have lost 4 or 5, so they're coming into this game pretty cold.
Yeah, Noah's out, Dunleavy's out, Mirotic is trying to masquerade at the 3, which is something that's exploitable offensively. That's something, if Ross and DeRozan play together in a standard looking lineup, Mirotic is going to be on one of those guys unless the Bulls want to pull Taj Gibson away from the rim to chase one of them. So there are going to be opportunities on offense to create mismatches when Mirotic is on the floor. And even when Doug McDermott's on the floor at the 3, he's improved defensively this year, but he's still a bit of a liability. The counter to that being that the Bulls are going to have, a bigger 3-man who can shoot in theory on the floor more often. I say in theory because I still don't believe Mirotic is much of a 3-point threat as much as the reputation says he is.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go on to the next game. Is Washington after that, and saw a tweet the other day, and it said that Bradley Beal has yet to average even a league average per in his career. That was surprising, man. I would have thought he would have been above a 15.0 per at this point in his career, but he's not. He's actually below that. What, did that make sense to you?
Yeah, player efficiency rating is a bit of a flawed offensive catch-all anyway, but Beal has a high turnover rate for someone with his usage. He doesn't rebound all that much, and then he's done a little bit better this year to get to the line, but he's basically has used DeRozan's shot mix with the ability to knock down threes and then gets to the line far less often. So imagine DeRozan traded some of his 3 points for made threes, and then that's how Beal, despite being a good 3-point shooter, ends up around league average in true shooting percentage. It's poor shot mix that I thought it was improving this year before he got hurt. We don't really need to go too much into detail on Beal because he's definitely not making it back by Wednesday. No. He's dealing with that stress injury in his leg again, which sucks because I like watching Beal play in non-playoff games against the Raptors, and the flare-ups of the stress injury, that sucks. It also they could be really shorthanded. I'm looking here. Gooden and Nene are both questionable for Monday, and Allen Anderson's still out for a while too, so they might be really banged up.
Yeah, so is Gary Neal. I think he didn't play the last game either. So he remains out as well. So this could be a fairly easy one, but again, with Washington, man, it's always tight games. And is this if you had to pick one rivalry for the Raptors, the hottest rivalry, the current most heated rivalry the Raptors might have, who would it be? Is it really Washington? Is it?
It's not Washington. You don't getting swept 4-0 and getting embarrassed and pissing your pants and then moping your way home is not a rivalry. There's no way to me, a rivalry, both teams have to consider it a rivalry. You can't have a one-way rivalry. I don't think the Wizards do. I don't think the Wizards give the first flying fuck about the Raptors. They swept them, they embarrassed them, and then sure, the Raptors beat them in the regular season earlier this year, but Washington could probably just be like, okay, do it in the playoffs.
Okay, from a fan's point of view,
why would the Wizards care about the Raptors?
Okay, I'm saying from a Raptor fan, I'm narrowing the criteria down by
yeah.
But from a Raptor fan's point of view, aren't the Wizards like a game you kind of circle in your calendar and say, yeah, well, let's see how we go against them? No, you don't do that?
No, I actually think the opposite. Because they got swept by the Wizards in the playoffs, they could sweep the Wizards in the regular season, and I won't care at all because it doesn't mean anything. The team that actually, and this maybe segs into our next topic, the team that I right now get most excited to play, this is so weird, is Charlotte, because the games are always weird and entertaining and Charlotte always wins. So it would be nice for the Raptors to get that monkey off their back, just because Charlotte stands as a potential playoff opponent, especially if the Raptors end up getting, the 2 seed instead of one of the 4 or 5 seeds.
And when they lost Gerald Henderson, I was so excited about that. but it didn't matter because last time you were shorthanded, no Nick Batum, no Al Jefferson, and yet we managed to blow that one. Horrible start to that game with the Raptors. They kind of cut it close, but didn't matter in the end. That was the game, I think, where the whole timeout thing happened with Kyle Lowry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This time around, I think this one's in Toronto. Yeah, I think so. 7:30 Friday in Toronto. What's the Charlotte injury situation? Batum's back.
Batum's back. Jefferson's back. Unless Jefferson gets smoking the weed again, doing dope, as the kids do. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is out pretty much for the whole season, probably, which is so unfortunate. I love that guy. Spencer Hawes is questionable for Monday, so by Friday he's probably going to be okay. He's got a back thing, and that's pretty much it. They're clear other than MKG.
Yeah. So thoughts on this game? Is it Nick Batum we didn't see last time, but this time around, who's going to be checking him? I guess DeMario Carroll is going to be assigned to him?
Yeah, and then I think Batum will check DeRozan on the other end.
Yeah.
Which is, tough week for DeRozan.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And
he's gonna get Otto Porter on Wednesday. He's gonna go Butler, Porter, Batum, and then Butler again.
Yeah, that's tough. And but as Kyle Lowry said in his, I think you posted on the Twitter account that DeRozan ain't taking dumbass shots anymore.
Yeah, I love Kyle Lowry, man. He's so funny. I'm just gonna read the whole exchange. This is from Ryan Wolstad of the Sun, who is in Chicago for the team's practice today. So Lowry was trying to interrupt the scrum. And DeMar says, "Come on, Kyle, you always want to play. Do I mess with you when you do interviews?" So Lowry goes away, and then DeRozan gets asked why his field goal percentage is up, and Lowry bounces back in and says, "Because he's not shooting dumbass shots." And then DeRozan says, "At least I get my shot off whenever I want." And then Lowry says, "Yeah, after 38 pump fakes."
That's exactly how fans feel too. So it's good to see his peers actually seeing the same view that we do. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's too funny. Those guys, Lowry kills me. That Merry Christmas Vine that was going around and that we posted a couple times it's so weird.
Is DeRozan, have you noticed anything different that he's doing other than not taking dumbass shots over the last 10 games? Because if you take his, I tweeted on their main account the Terrence Ross last 10 games, but if I do the same thing for DeRozan, it's going to be very similar.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. The shot mix isn't particularly different. I do wonder if him passing the ball so well all season is starting to catch up and give him a little bit of extra breathing room when he's attacking off the bounce. But for the most part, I think his shots are just going in. I'll pull... If this is something you're curious about, I can pull Basketball Savant shot charts before and after this 10-game stretch after the podcast to post with the podcast. I'm not sure if they'll show a drastically different shot mix. My instinct would be that a lot of the longer twos have become mid twos, and some of those mid twos have become shorter, like 8 to 10 foot twos. But yeah, it's looked like the same DeRozan, just a more effective version. And I do wonder if the passing, defenses have to respect that a little bit. And as the Raptors get back to health, there will be even more threats around the court. So maybe if that's the case, that's only going to snowball.
Yeah, that was my take on it in the article that I wrote for the site this week was DeMar DeRozan taking a step in. I think.
Wait, you write for the site?
Yeah. Once in a while, I actually do manage to fart out an article. But the one I did manage to eke out was about DeRozan and how comparing his shot selection to last year. And how he's taking a lot more 3 to 10 footers this year. I think it's up by like 10% versus the 16 to 22 feet. So the long twos actually have become mid-range jumpers now between the 3 to 10 feet. And he's obviously more effective there, which goes without saying. So I think that's been part of it. But man, against the Bucks, as I was watching this game at the Dragon and Crown on Young and Bloor.
We got to talk more about this bender you were on, by the way, after.
Oh yeah,
and compare it to my bender from Boxing Day.
And I noticed he pulled some moves on Middleton, which just froze Middleton completely. Like he was like in transition, he crossed it, he froze Middleton, and then drove to his left around him for the layup. He did that a couple times, and he's playing with this level of confidence that I haven't seen before. It's almost like now he seems to believe that he is a top 2 guard in the league, whereas before he was trying to convince himself that he is one.
Okay, I'm sorry to change the topic quickly. Dion Waiters just threw down the nastiest dunk in this Thunder Nuggets game. Transition 2 guys, Kenneth Faried and someone else I missed too, both tried to go up the block, and Dion Waiters crammed.
Blake, you know how podcasts work, right? I mean, by the time they listen to this, they would have already seen it. Yeah, the medium doesn't work that way.
No, I got distracted. Sorry, you were saying something. DeRozan ate Chris Middleton's lunch. DeRozan's got so many moves, man, and like as much as Kobe in the modern game isn't the best guy to model your game after, he's clearly stolen some of those little shoulder shakes. Against Dallas, he ripped off Dirk's one-legged fadeaway to hit one over Wesley Matthews, which was a cool moment with Dirk on the floor. He's been awesome. 26.6 points on almost 50% shooting over the last 9.
Does he make the All-Star team?
I think the way it looks right now, he does. He's not going to make it as a starter. And, with how the first voting returns came in with Lowry in third, I think it would make sense if fans kind of funnel their support behind Lowry and make sure Lowry's on every ballot, even if you'd prefer DeRozan. But I think looking at the East guard situation right now, coaches love DeRozan and they voted him in 2 years ago. The games in Toronto, which might affect coach voting, I'm not sure. At the very least, it would affect if someone was hurt and Adam Silver got to make his pick for a replacement. I think that would have an impact. But DeRozan, he's right there, man. Like I think
he's leading in points per game, 22.7 for all shooting guards. I had a Butler and Wade. He's shooting they're all shooting 45% basically from the field, and he's also the best free throw shooter among those three. So I think based on like just merit alone, he definitely gets in. But I agree with you, not as a starter, just because of the fan voting thing.
Yeah. So Wade has a significant enough lead right now that tells me that fans are going to vote Wade in. Like, it's not an insurmountable lead, but if the early returns say that, then that to me says Wade's getting in. I think Lowry eventually overtakes Kyrie Irving for the other one. If we get a Drake tweet and a Justin Bieber tweet saying Kyle Lowry, #NBA vote. Drake, Biebs, I know you're both listening. Mm-hmm. So if you could get that, I hope Carly Rae Jepsen's listening too. Maybe she could tweet out, get those RTs going. But then I think Jimmy Butler's taking his spot. Reggie Jackson is in the conversation. Nick Batum's in the conversation. I don't know offhand if Batum's on the ballot as a front court or a backcourt player. But yeah, Reggie Jackson's the conversation. John Wall probably makes his way on the team. So then we're talking about DeRozan fighting with Reggie Jackson, maybe Kemba Walker, Nick Batum if he's on the backcourt instead of front court, and a couple of guys like that for one of the last guard spots. Yeah. But he certainly deserves it. 22.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, 4.1 assists. Those are good numbers, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's going to get voted in. I think the coaches recognize that he's not the MVP for the Raptors, but without him, the Raptors kind of are not where they are right now. So
yeah, and there's 3 weeks still left in voting. So if he goes on a little run here, say he against this Butler Porter Batum Butler stretch, if he stays hot, maybe that kind of solidifies it. I don't know. I don't think he has a chance to get voted in if we're being realistic.
Yeah, but and I think he's the only shooting guard that of those four that has actually won Player of the Month this year.
Wait, he didn't get Player of the Month. He got a Player of the Week, right? I thought Lowry was a near miss for Player of the Month and LeBron got it, and DeRozan got a Player of the Week. Right, DeRozan definitely got a Player of the Week.
All right, whatever. It's good enough. I think of those four, he's still the only one who got a Player of the Week.
Okay, well, let's see. Right. He got a Player of the Week December 14th. So Reggie Jackson has 2, which we can't really look at a point guard shooting guard because the ballot's backcourt front court. So they're competing for one of the same spots. But yeah, otherwise, and then Batum has one if he's on there as a shooting guard instead of a small forward. I'm not sure. Yeah. He shouldn't be. He should be on there as a 3. But who knows with these ballots?
All right. Hey, Matt, it's like 45 minutes of this podcast so far, and I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, well, tell me about this bender you've been on first. I know it was your daughter's birthday on Christmas Day. Happy birthday to her.
Yeah.
How did you find the time to go on a bender during, I know you don't celebrate Christmas, but your daughter's birthday, and, with holidays, I assume your wife wanted you around the house some.
Well, it's we just made a deal, right? It was Boxing Day, so I took care of the kids in the day, and she went shopping. And in the evening was my time to shine. And
man,
that's how you do
it. Women be shopping, eh?
It's all about trades, Blake. You'll find this out soon enough. It's all about compromises, and I compromised my day and got the night in return.
You guys have a little family trade machine. Do you want to hear about my Boxing Day bender?
What is it?
I wrote the pregame post.
All right.
Then I wrote the pregame news post when Carol was announced to be coming back. Yeah. Then I watched the game. I did the grandstand highlight of the night. I did the quick reaction. Then I caught up on the 9:05 game, wrote the recap for that, then doubled back to write the Raptors-Bucks recap.
All while completely drunk.
By the end, probably.
Hey, let's talk about 9:05 momentarily, man. Just
sure.
Briefly, I should say. What you've seen the last couple of games? Ronald Roberts, he's not long for the team, is he?
No. So as of January 5th, NBA teams can sign players to 10-day contracts. The nature of the D-League, for anyone who doesn't know, the Raptors own Ronald Roberts' D-League rights, but that doesn't give them any sort of NBA claim to him. For the Raptors to call up Ronald Roberts, because the Raptors have 15 contracts right now, they would have to cut someone, not send someone to the D-League and call Ronald Roberts up. They would have to cut someone and sign Roberts to an NBA contract. They're probably not going to do that. They've talked about how Anthony Bennett is a longer-term project. Maybe things change later in the year if there are injuries. But right now, Ronald Roberts is the only part of the organization that has a claim to him is Raptors 905. Mm-hmm. So he's free to sign with any NBA team. And as of January 5th, which is now a little over a week away, teams can sign players to 10-day contracts. We've already seen this year, Bryce Cotton and Jarrell Eddy got called up, even though they can't get signed on 10-day contracts. You just sign them to a partially guaranteed full-year deal. But teams like the flexibility a 10-day provides. So, as of January 5th, Ronald Roberts, I would probably rank him third among all D-League players in terms of likelihood of a call-up, but he's number one among big men. Mm-hmm. Elliot Williams and Sean Kilpatrick are probably the first guys that teams are looking at, but if a team needs a big, if a team needs rebounding, if a team needs energy off the bench, Roberts is probably the guy. He has been... I expected this coming in. I wrote a feature on him at the start of the year for Raptors Republic, where I had some one-on-one time with him, and I talked to him about the decision to stay here in the D-League making peanuts instead of going to Europe and cashing in. And he said, it's because I'm, right there for the NBA. He said, in his words, I have a foot and a half in the door. And he's not wrong. I was a little surprised no one picked him up. For a legitimate tryout, the Raptors had him in training camp. But this dude averaged 18 and 12 in the D-League last year, shooting over 60%. Right now, he's averaging 17.5 points, 12.8 rebounds, and shooting 65.3%. He's not gonna come in and you're not gonna run plays for him or anything like that. But he's unstoppable on the glass. He's a great dunker. He's a little undersized for a big man in terms of height, but he's got length. He's a great jumper. Someone's going to scoop him up real soon.
Is he like Bismack Biyombo light?
No. He can step out a little further than that. He's got really good hands as a dive man. He can make a little bit of a pocket pass in a two-man game, though he's not a particularly willing passer. The bigger shortcomings for him, he's a decent team defender, but not a great man defender, and he'll get his shot blocks, but he's not a particularly elite defender for a guy with his athleticism. And part of that is being a little undersized. Part of that is that the 905 are using him in all sorts of different ways. This is a guy who was originally a tweener forward and is now a tweener power forward / center. So, anyway, the D-League Showcase is January 6th to 10th in Santa Cruz, which is where all the D-League teams will be there playing 1 or 2 or 3 games, and it's going to be a ton of NBA scouts there and agents and things like that. And I'd be surprised if January 10th he makes his way back to Mississauga with the Raptors.
That's the final piece of news from there is Nick Wiggins got actually cut or waived by the 905. You saw him play a few times. Assess his game for me. Does he have a future in the D-League, in Europe, in the NBA ever? What did you make of him?
Definitely not the NBA. He'll have a shot. It might be too late in the year now to get any sort of decent European gig. I think he's got the talent, and with the name, he could probably catch on as one of the import players in one of the top 4 or 5 European leagues, whether that's in Spain or the Adriatic League or Turkish League or something like that. He could definitely have that option if he wants to cash in a little bit. If he wants to be close to the NBA, wants to be closer to home, another D-League team might give him a shot. He was a middling bench player last year in the D-League, and he wasn't particularly effective for the Raptors. I don't really know why they waived him. I'm a little surprised because they haven't added anyone to the roster since. He seemed like a decent team guy, to be around the team and to talk to him every once in a while. He just wasn't playing particularly well, and when Caboclo's sent down there really isn't room for another wing. He was going to be inactive sometimes. Maybe he asked for his release to pursue something in Europe, which is something that's fairly common in the D-League too.
Is Sim Bular still traveling to road games, or no? He is
not traveling to road games.
What's the logic behind that? Could you have you figured this one out?
Yeah, so from being around and asking a little bit, the team's pretty tight-lipped about the specifics of his conditioning program, but the way I pieced it together is that this is not a matter of can Sim Bular play 25 minutes a game. Last year for Reno, he averaged 25 minutes a game. They played at a breakneck pace, but Bular's game basically existed from under his team's net to his team's own free throw line. He was a defensive rebounder who then passed the ball, and if there was a dead ball, he would be put underneath the basket, didn't set many screens. He was basically just underneath each rim, and that's it. So he played 25 minutes a game, but he wasn't playing 25 minutes the way that the 905 would want to play him, and he wasn't playing 25 minutes the way that if he has a future that includes the NBA, he's going to play. Yeah. So I think this is kind of a retooling of his conditioning, not just in terms of cardio and can you play, but can you be a functional athlete? To watch him bend over and tie his shoes is kind of painful. He doesn't have that kind of flexibility even. So, part of it is diet, part of it is cardio, but I think a big part of it is trying to turn some of his appreciable size into functional size where he can jump a little bit, he can, the team doesn't have to wait for him to get down the floor to get into their sets, things like that. And right now the team's playing him in 5 and 6 minute stints. He seems to be improving a little bit. I thought on their last homestand, by the end of it, he was doing some nice things as a finisher in the pick and roll and as a help defender at the rim. But, if he has an NBA future, it's a little whiles away still, and he needs whatever this conditioning program is. And again, this is me from a very outside with the organization staying pretty tight-lipped on it. This is the way I understand it and am piecing it together, because I don't think it's just Simbular's too big and he eats McDonald's and he can't play 10 minutes a game without getting gassed. I don't think that's really the case. I think it's more a case of turning him into a basketball player instead of a big guy who can stand under both rims.
I mean, I had a simplified explanation. I thought he didn't travel because his passport was expired. Simple as that.
The Axel Toupon.
Axel, what a great name that was. Too bad it didn't work out.
Axel Toupon's on the 905. He's doing great.
Yeah, but he's not going to the NBA. You know what I mean?
No, probably not. He's a really, really good defensive player, though, and I do wonder if long-term he has the potential to do that. His offensive game isn't really there, but they're kind of using him as a sixth man extraordinaire, playing the 2, the 3, the 4, acting as a primary ball handler in the second unit, and the fact that he can defend 3 positions pretty well, I wouldn't rule out that he has an NBA future. It wouldn't be a high upside one, but there might be an NBA player there. By the way, we have just talked more about a D-League team on a podcast than any podcast has ever talked about a D-League team, and everyone has stopped listening by now.
I think if you search like Raptors 905, like we're like the second hit that comes up after the actual site.
Good, we should be number 1.
Yeah. So here's a question that I had. So you mentioned earlier how we had to like cut one player to accommodate a guy like Ronald Roberts. I know the Raptor organization doesn't want to do this, but would you, having seen the 905, having seen Anthony Bennett, would you make that trade? Would you actually cut Anthony Bennett to accommodate Ronald Roberts?
I wouldn't phrase it that way if I were going to do it. It wouldn't be because, we can't lose another Hassan Whiteside type. It would be because Ronald Roberts right now is probably a more functional NBA player than Anthony Bennett. The team probably believes that Anthony Bennett has a greater upside, which, considering the fact that Bennett, projects as maybe a better and more versatile defender and might be able to shoot from the corners, they might not be wrong. I'm having trouble with Bennett because the only game action we have to evaluate him in is so flawed and such small samples. Like, he played 24 minutes in a D-League game on a short notice assignment where he didn't play the fourth quarter, and he was basically just getting his shots up. And then he played 10 minutes unexpectedly when the team was super banged up, and he was tasked with guarding Dirk Nowitzki. So, like, the sample we have to evaluate Bennett right now isn't the greatest. I don't know, man. With 5 guys at the end of the roster that are fringy rotation guys, it's probably something that Casey would love the chance to do. But also, when Valanciunas is back, the team doesn't really need another big man. They've got Skoll and Patterson, who are going to get heavy minutes. They've got Valanciunas, who's the unquestioned starter. They've got Biyombo, who's now proven he can handle maybe slightly more minutes. And then Nogueira, who has turned in a couple stinkers in a row, but was playing pretty well before. So when you factor in that Anthony Bennett is kind of like the 6th big right now, and then you can also use James Johnson as a big, it's going to suck to lose Roberts to another team and maybe watch him do fairly well, but it's not like he would be playing much on the Raptors either. He'd be playing Anthony Bennett minutes probably.
All right. I think that's it, man. We got to wrap it up. It's like almost an hour. So,
what do you guys normally do for these Monday podcasts? I mean, I listen every week, but the time goes by so fast that I don't notice.
Right. But Blake, man, thanks for coming on. I'll let you get back to WordPress and start publishing more articles.
Yeah, I'm 2,300 words deep right now on a Valanciunas Biyombo thing. So, yeah, I'm gonna. What am I doing with my life, sir? I don't.
Don't worry, Blake. We're gonna lose you soon enough. Somebody's gonna come and poach you, and then we're gonna have to promote. I don't know. Andrew? I have no idea.
You know what? There are some nice parallels here because I've been fond of joking when I'm at the 905 stuff if I, misword a question or, someone asks me why the hell I'm at a D-League game when the Raptors are at home or something like that. It's a D-League season for me too. Yeah. And, Raptors Republic has to be worried that I'm going to get that Ronald Roberts treatment. There are sites and companies out there that can offer 10-day contracts to bloggers as of January 5th.
Yeah, so. but we got your online internet rights though, unlike the Raptors with Ronald Roberts.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thanks for talking. And prediction for this week. It's 4 games. Give me a quick schedule prediction. 4-0, 3-1. What do you think?
Yeah, I think 3-1. I think they beat the Wizards and the Hornets, and I think they split the Bulls. I'm not sure which Bulls game they win. Maybe the second one, even though the second one's on a back-to-back. Second one's on a back-to-back? No, second one's the first night of a back-to-back. I think they go 3-1. They take one of the 2 Bulls games. Maybe Monday's a loss because, you're working guys back in and it's on the road. I don't know, 3-1. They split the Bulls games and they win the other 2. I'm feeling optimistic today.
Wow, they beat Charlotte, eh? That's a big call with Batum. All right.
And with Al Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2-2.
Jeremy Lin's not hanging another 30-piece.
Yeah. I'm saying win against Washington and win against the Bulls, the second one, and Charlotte and Chicago are losses.
Man, okay, but if they're going to lose to Charlotte, you have to also lay out the excruciatingly painful way in which they're going to lose because it's going to follow that formula.
Kemba Walker hasn't hit a fadeaway game winner on us in a couple of years, so I'm going to go with that one.
It's only been a couple of years, eh? Yeah, I guess he's due.
He's done it before, but he's due. Charlotte's one of those teams. It's our boogie team, man. And the players come and go. Teams, they rotate. Doesn't matter. They always seem to play us tight. And so I'm gonna go with Charlotte as a loss. So there you go, man.
All right. Do you have any parting shots before we go? I have one parting shot I need to get off that might be pointless, but
do it.
Okay. There is a commenter and a reader. He's not a frequent commenter, but I did this guy so dirty on Sunday. In the pregame news and notes for the game, on Saturday, I mentioned the outcome of the Team Canada World Junior Hockey game. To whoever JPaps is, the commenter, if you're listening, I'm so sorry, man. I feel awful that you PVR'd the game and then came to Raptors Republic to read pregame stuff and for the Raptors and had the game spoiled. I feel terrible, and I will never talk about hockey, even for one line in a Raptors Republic post again.
Yeah, forget hockey, man. I can't believe you even brought that up on a podcast. All right.
Well, I want to apologize to this guy if he's listening. I feel terrible.
Yeah, he'll survive.
I'm the worst, though. He'll definitely survive.
Well, they lost 4-2, didn't they? So you probably saved him a lot of time.
I'm not saying anything in case anyone's PVR'd the game and is going to binge watch them all at the end of the tournament. Yeah. I'm not spoiling anything.
All right, Blake.
Thanks, man.
See ya.